Norbert's is having a sale on climbing ropes. They are 10% off in June. Go to norberts.net for 10% discount on anything with the code GymCastic June. And Norbert's is also giving away a $50 Norbert's gift card that can be used for anything in their online store. Just go to Norbert's Athletic on Instagram and like and comment on their giveaway post. Good luck.
It's like the judges went to a 3 Michelin star restaurant and then they went to Burger King and they voted for Burger King. Like, that's what the 1997 World Beam Final is.
Remember, the show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two.
She was robbed. From the all-around gold to fake controversies to broken ties and the deepest deep cuts all the way back to the 1980 Olympic beam final, it's our Who Was Robbed episode, just about robberies. This is the 21st episode for 2023. It's June 5th. Welcome to summertime. This is the #1 gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and I'm here with Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation. And Spencer, please set the scene.
Yes. Today, we have to work through the most dramatic, heinous, horrifying robberies in the history of gymnastics. These are people, all right, guidelines. Jessica, I'm setting some guidelines.
What?
I know you will ignore immediately. People who should have won gold or should have won a medal, but did not. Big events, major moments. No city championships, which means we're not talking about the American Cup. That's what that means. No American Cup controversy.
I would
not doing
never.
City championships, Olympics, World Championships, and not feelings robberies, actual medals.
Spencer, how dare you? How dare you all the way? Oh, also, we have a little...
I'm sorry.
Don't hurt yourself. That's my job.
I anticipate a lot of like, okay, yes, she fell twice, but in my feelings, she should have won gold. So obviously she was robbed.
Well, I already have some feelings about some people that you've chosen, and I'm like, you're insane. There was she might have been robbed, but she shouldn't have won. Okay, so here we'll get to that, Spencer. But first, we have some feedback from Caitlin. So she said, I am loving the video version of the podcast now. Seeing Spencer's face during Jessica's stories makes them even funnier. So you guys, if you want to, this is a watch along episode, and we do have a YouTube channel that we have all of our competition footage and all the meets that we go to, everything's on there. And also you can watch the podcasts on there if you would like to. Behind the scenes is still, and College and Cocktails and all of that is still private for Club Gym Nerd members as your special perk, where you get to ask us questions live every Friday at noon Pacific. But this is, you can now watch along. So, all right, let's talk about, the big one that everyone's the most excited about. It's obviously the most important are the individual event titles, but we can start with this.
The big one, the actual big one, which is the Olympic all-around gold. I would say, so we're saying in terms of the biggest all-around gold robbery, I am not including Andrea Radikon 2000 in this category because that was not an in-competition robbery. Like, as far as I'm concerned, she won the 2000 all-around competition, and rightfully so. Yeah. So that was robbed outside competition circumstances. So yes, technically, maybe that's the biggest all-around Olympic gold robbery in history, but not for my purposes right now, is what I'm saying.
Well, she falls into the Pickpockets and Pirates section, where it was not her fault. She had nothing to do with it.
Right.
It was just a dumpster fire of an Olympics.
She was just an innocent bystander.
Yeah. And I mean, also, if we're going to be fair about this, the real thing was actually Horkina who was robbed of her, who was the bazillion-time world champion, because it was, the FIG not having the apparatus norms updated, so the vault was set wrong, which made her fall on her vault, and it was actually Horkina. But anyway, see Gymnastics.
Oh my God, you have been
but we're not
drinking the Kool-Aid on the Horkina cult
or
that you would have won.
Listen, I don't support Horkina and her fake military job and her fake phone calls or anything, but she was the one that should have won that Olympics. That's all I'm saying. It's just facts. Anyway, so we're not talking about that one.
Yeah, so that thing we just talked about for 5 minutes, we're not talking about it, is what I want to say. Because what we're actually talking about is the actual biggest robbery in the history of the Olympic women's all-around title, which is 1992, Shannon Miller, she was robbed.
All right.
End of conversation. Okay,
you and Steve Nuno agree on this.
The one thing that Steve Nuno and I agree on. Okay, so what actually happened? Tatiana Gutsu wins Olympic all-around gold in 1992. Shannon Miller is silver. There was a Rosa Galieva situation, which you will be familiar with if you watched the 1996 Olympics on NBC or spent any time on YouTube, in which Rosa Galieva originally qualified as one of the 3 unified team gymnasts into the all-around final, and Tatiana Gutsu did not because she fell on beam in the team competition, and then they subbed back in Gutsu because obviously she had a much better chance of winning a medal than Rosa Galieva, and then NBC was like, isn't that horrible and un-American? And was like, let's make 80 videos about it. Because we're NBC, and that's our Olympic broadcast, and that's what we do. Anyway, that is a story for another
where they're like, oh, you see these really great athletes that have nothing to do with the politics in their country at the time? Yes, they are. We're going to talk about how much better Americans are than them. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so that's the background. They sub Gutsu into the final. She ultimately wins gold by a very small margin over Shannon Miller in silver. This was a robbery. This is the incorrect result. I will say Tatiana Gutsu, superior on bars, certainly, especially by modern bar standard. That was the stronger routine than Shannon Miller's. She scored higher than Shannon. She should have scored higher than Shannon. Beam, closer to a wash. Miller had the larger single error on her back pike. She kind of, there's a wobble and a turn to the side. They both had a couple checks. Miller's dismount landing control was better. I think Gutsu's leaps hold up much better to the modern expectations for leaps on beam and to the modern eye, but Miller wouldn't necessarily have been deducted for those. Well, obviously, it was 1992.
Yeah, she wasn't. That's the whole thing. So you can't bring that up. You can't modern standard it.
Right, I'm not. I'm saying I'm not modern standarding it. I'm saying that, but obviously that is what I see when I'm watching it. Gutsu, by modern standards, leaps better, but that was not taken into account at that point.
Right, it didn't count.
If this competition were bars and beam only, I would be like, yes, give Tatiana Gutsu the gold medal. But it's not. Vault and floor were events. So if we go to vault, Shannon Miller's Yurchenko full, one of the best Yurchenko fulls.
So her legs, perfect. Perfect. They both flare it out because in
both lovely
you can have style. Right. Which is how, if you're doing a Yurchenko full, you better flare it out. Because these days, you learn it when you're 5. So, yeah. But it's like a full turn now. But yeah, I would say their vaults, Shannon was clearly the better on vault. Her vault was better.
And so she only scored 0.25 better than Gutsu. Miller got a 9.975. Gutsu got a 9.95. For me, that should have been a 10 for Miller, 9.95 for Gutsu. This is what I'm saying. I feel like, especially, it was still 1992. Like, it was still basically the current NCAA code. Yeah. Like, you could still get a 10. That should have been a 10. Yeah. But the big issue is floor.
The D.
Because, okay, well, neither of these floor routines are going in the Smithsonian, I'm saying. Like, there's impressive difficulty, but we've got some chest positions. We've got some feet. We've got some issues in both of them. But the kicker is Tatiana Gutsu's first pass. Split leg double layout, very impressive.
Iconic.
She lands inside the Earth's core, and she's so short, she's at the center of the Earth, and lunges forward with a huge lunge that should obviously have put her floor score well below Miller's. And in reality, Gutsu got a higher floor score than Shannon Miller in this competition, which makes no sense, renders the entire competition invalid. Shannon Miller was the stronger performance in this all-around and was robbed of gold. That is what I have to say on the matter.
I agree with you. I'm going to agree with you.
Wow.
Shannon Miller was robbed. You and Nuno, which is shocking that those are coming out of my mouth.
Okay, it's not just me and, like, it's not, we're not the only two people who think this.
No, but
if our omission of Shannon Miller from our best Beam Routines Commission episode is any, the reaction to that is any indication, a lot of other people also will feel that Shannon Miller deserved to win the all-around gold in 1992.
I will say that the good thing about this finale, it's a finale. It's not a final.
Yeah,
it's a finale. Because I want everything to be like Eurovision, and as we discussed, they should have Hannah Whelan from Ted Lasso announcing the winners in a gown. I like
that you called her Hannah Whelan, who is a gymnast. Hannah Waddingham is the actress you're thinking about.
Hannah, Rebecca from Ted Lasso. Yeah. That's who she is forever for me. But that she, like, basically they took less deductions in my mind. This is what happened. The judges took less deductions on floor for Gutsu because she was doing a split leg double layout, which is redonkulously hard. That's why no one does it. Like, who's done it since then? 2 people have tried that essentially and actually competed it since 1992. So I feel like this is
more
the problem.
People would have done it if you could still do it in Elite.
Yeah. Well, you can just for fun, But
even
in NCA, so few people.
What is the point of fun? Signed the Women's Technical Committee. That's their whole motto. What is the point of fun? That's not what this is for.
Yeah, but I think that's part of the problem is they were like, oh, we're awarding for difficulty and taking less deductions, and so therefore rendering the competition unfair because people were getting less deductions who are doing harder things. So I agree with this. I will say Shannon Miller, robbed. This is probably my biggest Shannon Miller robbery. Otherwise, I'm pretty much fine with Shannon Miller in general. But we can get to that. Don't send your letters in. We'll get to that on our part 2 of Greatest Beam Workers of All Time. Not the deep cuts, Shannon Miller. It's just going to be in a whole... We do have a whole episode just about Shannon Miller, by the way. Okay, I would like to...
Never talked about Shannon Miller before. Yep.
I would like to move backwards in time now.
Good,
to 1988. Another Olympic Games.
1988?
88. Yeah. Seoul, South Korea.
Yes.
Silivas, Shushinova.
Yes. Big
Let
one.
us discuss. Also, shout out to all these YouTubers who have made, like, when I'm like, is there a back-to-back video of these gymnasts going? Yes. This person made a back-to-back video of Shushinova and Silivas, and it's so fantastic. But anyway, so we have done an entire commissioned episode on this, which I completely forgot about. Until
we've done an entire episode just on whether Shushinova or Silivas should have won in 1988.
And I forgot about it completely until I started doing research, and I was like, oh, what's this? Oh, that's us. We did a whole episode about this because I never read all of Spencer's notes. So anyway, yeah, December 2018, episode 344, you can listen to that episode if you'd like. It's very entertaining because I listened back to it. So
good. Were we smart? Were we funny?
Yeah, it was actually very funny and lots of backstories in that. So especially about like Silivas's back just being torn to shreds. And you can see it because every time she's not doing gymnastics, she's holding her back like, why? Yeah, because they didn't pre-send her to Germany back then to get her back fixed like they do in Russia now. So our conclusion then was basically that overall Silivas was a stronger, wonderful, better gymnast. But on the all-around final day, Shushinova kicked her ass with sheer athleticism and... what is the word I'm looking for? Athleticism and, like, laser pinpointed accuracy in her skills. That is what we concluded.
Is that what we thought?
I mean, yes, it is.
Okay.
That's what we said at the time.
Okay. I thought that Silivas was better on the all-around day, but Shushinova was better in team, which still carried over.
Oh, yeah. We might have said that. But I interpreted it as...
yeah. I wanted Silivas to get higher scores in the all-around final itself to make up for the fact that Shushinova was better in the team competition.
I think it was
Silivas
we did talk about the carrying over because this is very
Yeah.
and doing this like research for this episode too, I was just like, where I don't remember what it's so different each time. You can't just judge it by that meet because you have to know what happened the whole entire Olympics, which is so lame. This one they called it new life. Now we have new life. So whatever you did in the past doesn't count. You're not punished for that stumble.
Which is better. Which I think it's superior as a format.
Yeah. Because otherwise it's all just like marathon gymnastics, which is boring, if you ask me. Yeah, so...
Speaking of which, we will spend a lot of time talking about the 2008 Olympics, and boy, going back and watching those routines, they're so long. When you had to count 10 skills, I'm like, my God, how many filler C elements can we throw into these routines? It's like present-day men's high bar.
Oh, God.
When they have to do, like, start with 2 of the most amazing skills you've ever seen, and then they dick around doing Stalter circles for 10 hours before they dismount so they can have enough skills in the routine. Yeah, there's a lot of that in 2008.
Yeah, I also was watching those and just like, Jesus Christ. How did more people not just die on bars? Just fling off because their hands were like, we weren't conditioned for this. We don't have the conditioning to hang on here for 10 skills. Yeah, so Silivas, winner based on the day. Shushanova based on marathon gymnastics rules, no new life back in the day.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
But I still feel like I would put Silivas in the robbed category.
Okay. And robbed...
I still would like to do that. It's not a Miller robbery.
Okay.
It's a petty misdemeanor.
So it's a misdemeanor because it's like it wasn't like the scoring was wrong. It was based on the format of the competition.
I still think there was some scoring wrong too.
Okay.
Like they got the same all-around score in the all-around final, and they shouldn't have. Silivas should have been higher.
And we did talk about in our commission episode
or almost the same, but they did not get exactly the same, right?
Almost the same, but not. I don't think so. I don't remember.
Yeah, not. Anyway, Silivas should have had more. I know. Silivas should have had more of a buffer from the all-around final itself. Anyway,
we did in our commission talk about the power of Silivas's hair and how even though she hated it, and then I got identical hair because of hers, including a perm. I feel like I didn't have a choice in that. I just showed up and my hair ended up like that. Because my dad was like, if you're not going to brush your hair every day, then we're cutting it off and giving you a perm. But
that's what happened in that era. It just magically occurred. You just showed up and suddenly you had a perm. You didn't know anything about it.
Oh my God. So anywho, I do feel like looking back at this, I'm like, was this still like was there some anti-Shushanova sentiment from her as a person rather than Silivas's like cute, perky, curly haired, was there were they judging the person or like judging on the aesthetics? The whole sports aesthetic. But of course
they were judging on the money that they exchanged at the bar the night before. That's what they were judging.
True. It's so true.
They weren't judging on... It wasn't about who was perky or who they liked. It was like, how's my wallet?
See Greg Marsden, Mike Jackie article about how they had to go to a meeting and decide on, who was going to win what and talked about it afterwards, etc. Spencer, you're having a crisis. Yeah. Can I help you with this?
Yeah, I don't think so, but I'm going to talk about it because I had to text Jessica this weekend in a crisis because we decided we were going to do this episode. Very fun. She was robbed. Oh my God. There's we can't even begin with how many horrible highway robberies there have been in gymnastics results over the years. And then I started watching some of the most famous examples and the things that were in my mind. Like, oh yeah, there's that one, and there's that one, and there's that one. And again, I was watching these routines, and I was like, actually, I think they might have been right. And I was like, oh no, Jessica, have I become the man? Am I the man now? I'm here like, the institutional decisions weren't that bad. I'm like, no, what has happened to me? It's horrible. Like, I went back and watched the 92 Olympic floor final, which is a very famous controversy. Lavini Milosevic of Romania wins gold. Henrietta Onodi is silver. In my head, I was like, Onodi was so much better, and everyone is horrible, and her routine is so beautiful and she's the best. And then I watch these and I'm like, I mean, yeah, I enjoy watching her performance way more, but like, she has a lot of deductions on that routine. And I kind of think Milo should have won. And I feel like maybe the entire controversy is just because like Milosevic's routine is so tacky. It's like in that very like 1992 US and Romanian floor routines where everyone had to be like
horrible.
a boogie woogie bugle boy. Like if your floor music wasn't from like a World War II dance hall where the GIs come back for a night, then you weren't doing floor. It was like every single one for an entire decade, and they're all horrible and it's unlistenable in every way. And I feel like that's why, and not the actual gymnastics or even the artistry, because like she commits to this routine. It's just stupid. That is where this controversy is. And I was like, oh, this is not a robbery. No, zero robbery. And that was happening again and again. And I was like, oh no, what happened to me?
The thing about it is I don't think it's that you're the man now.
Thank God.
Unless it's that you're the one that gets the most marriage proposals. More now that this is on. I mean, I'm taken. So what are you going to do? But you have not succumbed to American propaganda. You've outgrown American propaganda. I feel like this is what happened to me. Like, I watched all this stuff. You know, I have all the VHS tapes, and I thought I believed the thing. And every time we go back and watch these meets, I'm like, what the are they talking about? That's not what I see. Also, every time I think about this, like the era of like the wartime jingles, I think of the GIs coming back to the dance hall and impregnating a town of women who have just been evacuated from their homes to be land girls, and now they've left all these orphans to be raised without, you know, any support. And anyway, I've watched too much British TV.
Leave it to Jessica to bring the mood down. We were having fun, making fun of dumb music, and now Jessica's like, well, let's talk about orphans again. All right. To change the mood again, I think we need to move into the un-American heresy portion of the episode, because we do like being un-American and having heretical to NBC in a way that they might at some point engage in inquisition.
It's important.
I guess I can't have the high ground because you went to orphans and I went to like the Spanish Inquisition. So, you know, we're bringing up some some really super fun things. I think there are some times when the prevailing within the U.S. gymnastics opinion might not match reality.
Yes.
Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree very much.
I thought you might.
Very much. And shall we start with the biggest version of that?
I would very much like to hear you talk about the 1984 Olympic all-around competition.
This is one of those things where it was this year when I saw a routine that I swear I have never seen before from the 1984 Olympics. And I was like, Mary Lou Retton fell at the Olympics on floor? And wait, what? Huh? But the scores? How did she win? Even though it's that
like,
close?
I've seen these scores, and I've seen this 9-9.
And I was like, what? Thank you to Pam Chenkova on the Twitters. Very clearly, Mary Lou Retton falls on the floor. Yeah.
What are you talking about, Jessica? This was just a 0.1 hand brush.
I am like, it is full weight on her hand, on the floor on her first pass. And she covers it up really well, but that's not a brush of the hand. That is absolute. She's in a all fours position, but she's on twos. One hand, one foot, one leg up in the air behind her to keep her balance from totally falling forward on her face. And I was like, wait, I don't remember this at all. This was in team finals, right? Whatever carried over. Team optional finals.
Because team still carried over in 1984. Because what you remember is the 10 she got on floor in the all-around final.
In the all-around final. And you forget, like, how, this is another thing, like, going back and seeing how the rules were applied and that it was marathon gymnastics, not just show up on the day new life, enjoy yourself. It just matters who's today. And also, you're screwed then if you didn't have a strong team. So it's way more fair now. So I am like, okay, obviously in the all around, which we all remembered, Mary Lou, incredible performer, great performer, great connection with the crowd. You cannot deny these things. But also that all around, I went and looked back. Bent knees on her double layout, really short on her second pass. I mean, she fell, straight up fell in team finals, as we just saw. And then she's short on her front tuck, too. She had to jump backwards out of that. It's just like a simple jump into a front tuck. And then you watch Szabo, who was, first of all, the real crime of this competition is that some makeup company was a sponsor and the gymnasts were forced to wear blue eyeshadow, not eyeliner. Very different. Very different.
Real?
Yes, that really happened.
That really, the gymnasts all were forced to wear this eyeshadow?
They were literally like, the sponsor was like, oh, what are the, fashion sports? And they were like, where are women allowed to compete? And yeah, they actually, I remember watching.
Where have women been invented by now? 84? Ooh, women haven't been that invented yet.
There wasn't even women's soccer then in the Olympics. Like, it's still way, way behind. So yeah, I remember watching commercials, like promos where they're like sitting in these fancy like makeup chairs and like, some horrible makeup artist was forcing them to wear blue eyeshadow. Blue eyeliner, totally different. I endorse, but eyeshadow, come on, you guys, no. It was not good in the 80s, and we should have left it there. That's all I'm saying. But the other real crime was, how did Mary Lou win this, even though she fell? And then Szabo, she's got like, she cowboys her double back, and she's a little short on her full in. But like, all right. But Mary Lou fell over.
That was in team.
I know it was in team, but she should have been deducted a half a point because that's what it was back then.
Yeah, she had a fall. Definitely. I mean, that is a fall. We have to acknowledge that is a fall. I do think, watching these back, that overall in the all-around final, Mary Lou had the better performance than Szabo. Do you disagree? Because I think Mary Lou was, even though Szabo got a 10th higher than Mary Lou in the all-around final. It was just the team scores that carried Mary Lou to gold, which is in itself like an issue because of the hand down. But I like these floor routines. I think Mary Lou's was better than Szabo's.
She had more difficulty than Szabo.
And better landing control. Szabo's...
No, I disagree with that. No.
Oh my god, Szabo's opening full in was so short with legs like full straddle, just like barely surviving.
Mary Lou's knees are totally bent in her double layout.
Yeah.
And also she's popping on every... What about
10?
Szabo's second pass where she's like completely just sticks it? Sticks. Perfect. No.
The thing about your second pass is that it doesn't erase your first pass if your first pass is a disaster. Maybe it does in 1984. Maybe that's what we learned from the 1984 code.
Yeah, I mean, I still would have given this. Like, the thing is that Mary Lou, I cannot take away from her, like, the performance quality that she had was incredible. And I also want to get a shout out to Romania for basically wearing their emblem to make it look like, and designing their Leos to make it look like they were wearing gold medals when they were doing this kind of... like it was a V-neck, white V-neck that looked like they were wearing like a silvery, satiny V to a gold emblem in the middle of their chest. Like, I really was like, oh, it's a gold medal. This kind of brain magic to the judges, it worked on me, is what I'm saying. But also, when you look at
subliminal messaging from,
I mean, when you look at Mary Lou's compulsories. Oh, yeah. Except for floor. Floor's great. But like beam, she can't even do a handstand with a split. I mean, and then you watch Olamotes and it's over for me. Like, get out of here.
That's a completely
different thing.
Conversation. Yeah.
But anyway.
I will say also, not just the Romanians having the gold medal on, shout out to the judges for all dressing as gold medals themselves.
They did. They used to have to dress like sportscasters with like puke yellow. That horrible... like leftover 70s color that everyone's kitchen was painted. Like, it was a linoleum kitchen floor color jacket.
Yeah. Oh, there is a scene where they're all gathered around like the head judges table to talk about a vault and how corrupt they're going to be about it. And it's just like, wow, that is a look. That is just
the
like
color
they've masked into like a gold mine.
It is the color of street puke after a Saturday night. That is the color of
I don't know. I feel like there's not enough mud in these looks.
Oh my god. All right. 2011. Let us
okay.
carry forward. 2011 Japan
World Championships. Jordan Weber, World All-Around Champion. Victoria Komova, World All-Around Silver. Do you want to start or should I start?
Okay, Weber was going through a growth spurt, I believe, here. And it looked like she was totally going to win. And then all throughout practice, the whole time watching this, because I was there in person for this, she was struggling on bars. And she had kind of a big boo-boo on bars.
Mm-hmm.
But she still won. So she had...
She did still win.
Yeah. She basically missed a hand on her bail. And I swear it looks like she tapped the ground, too. But she still won, even with that. So I'm like, okay, and also like her free hip to full pirouette was all wonky. It so looks like she hits the ground after she missed her hand on the bail and kips out of it. Maybe she didn't because she's, the strongest human alive. But it really looks like she hits her foot on the mat, trying to just stay on the bar. I mean...
Yeah, I'm mixed on this one. But I think the main thing it comes down to me with Komova, who I thought had a very good performance in the all-around final. It's not amazing, but she went through cleanly where Weber had the single larger error. My question about Komova is, I'm not sure I understand why her all-around beam scored 0.8 lower than her qualification beam. It's not quite as good. She is a little, like her rhythm in connections is a little more tentative, so I can see her losing some things there. A bit bigger of a landing error. I assume she must not have gotten her double turn, because she kind of, her second foot, her free foot on her double turn on beam, she steps it down behind her standing foot. So I think that she must not have gotten full 2 rotations, which hurt, but I don't know why it was so much lower than it was in qualification. And that is the big question for me. Because other parts of this controversy, it's like, oh, Komova's floor was really good. I'm like, yeah, but like, she had a large error on her final pass. Like, there are things to take here. And Jordan Weber went out of bounds. Her score was still very high. It was a 14-8, so there are things there too. I don't know. So I'm mixed on this robbery, but I'm willing to go there. The thing about rewatching these routines, though, is it really takes you back, because all of the uploads from the time on YouTube that I was watching all have the comments turned off. And I'm like, yeah, I know why and when and how that happened. I remember living through that. But I feel like enough time has passed that we can like talk about it maturely and non-controversially in a way. But
I remember being shocked that Jordan Weber won, being there. I mean, Jordan Weber, like, overall, totally more dynamic, I would say. But Komova just was stunning. Like, I mean, she's sticking her triple full. She has, some helicopter legs, but they're not Romanian-level helicopter legs. Like, they're just apart a little bit. I was really surprised. I remember at the time watching it live, but then again,
I mean, if you're asking me who to pick, I'm picking Komova because of the beam situation, but I do get why Weber scored as well as she did, and as well as she did on floor. Like, speaking of
floor legs, is the one
we don't
where
talk about enough how good Jordan's twisting form is.
Yes.
It's so good. And I'm like, oh, just give her a 15 for that.
Yeah, like the thing about like Jordan's watching her floor, I was like, oh, clearly, even with an out of bounds, like this is a better overall floor. Yeah. But I remember at the time
I could
shocked.
not find the D-score, E-score breakdown
for
2011, and it's driving me crazy.
Me either. I literally went back. I was complaining to Fact Checker about this last night. I was like, look at this. This is the official results on the FIG site. And there's no E and D scores anywhere. And I remember like being so pissed about that for years because we couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And
I need to go back to my handwritten results following along at the time, which I was still doing in 2011. I should still do it because I feel like we missed some things.
Yeah.
Which has come in handy. I need to go into the drawer and find those, and which I haven't done yet. But that's the only way I have the scores of the 2008 Olympic selection camp.
Yeah.
which did not have live scores. I have those handwritten on a piece of loose notebook paper, and I'm like, that's the only way I have these scores, so I need to keep this stuff for posterity. So maybe I have them written down somewhere. I'm going to look.
All right, I think maybe we should do a commission that's just like Komova versus Weber 2011, and then we can do Andrade Suni Tokyo.
Ooh, yeah. So I really wanted to have like a hot take on this episode for to hard drive, like, ooh, be controversial online. People should engage with this. Not like we ever try to do that. Who would ever? I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say Andrade should win over Suni. And I think there's a solid argument. I went back and watched the all-around final again from Tokyo. This is like the third time watching it. I do think Andrade has a very solid argument. And every time I watch this, I'm like, overall, Andrade's execution through 4 events, along with her difficulty, is stronger. But she's losing 5/10 and out of bounds. 4 on floor and 1 on vault, rightfully, correctly. I don't think she was half a fall better than Suni through taking everything else into account. So that's why I'm not ready to put this in a robbery category. Maybe in 10 years, I'll be putting this in a robbery category when we do this episode again in 10 years, because we'll have forgotten we did it the first time. We'll be like, you know what we've never done? The biggest robberies in gymnastics medals. We should do that episode, because that's definitely going to happen.
It will.
Maybe I'll feel differently, but I'm like, ooh, that second heel on floor when she goes out of bounds a lot with 1 foot, and then that second heel is bordering, and then she puts it down, and I'm like, that's the all-around final.
Really, it was a drive-by by boundaries, which she cannot be contained by, and that is the problem. Yes, I blame the tape on the floor, and obviously not Andrade. This is the problem when you watch the gymnastics, and you're like, oh, clearly this is gymnastics is better, but then dumb things like floor lasers that ruin everything.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So I want to know about the 2008 bars final at the Olympic Games.
I can't wait to talk about this.
NBC would have you think was highway robbery, like stagecoach days, Old West. From either side, like, dirt on the trail style. So let me
set the scene first. Let me just recap in case you don't think about this like 3 times a week the way I do, and I know half of our listeners are like, you don't need to describe this. There's never a moment where I'm not thinking about this bars final, but some people might need a refresh. He Kexin of China and Nastia Liukin of the United States tie on their total scores in the 2008 Olympic bars final. They have the same difficulty score. They have the same execution score. In those days, we called them A and B scores for a second before they were like, that's dumb. Let's call them difficulty and execution scores. So because they were same total score and same execution score and same difficulty score, they went to the next tiebreak, which is to drop the low single judges counting execution score. So when you dropped the low of the 4, He Kexin now had execution scores of 9-1, 9-1, and 9-0 from the counting judges, and Nastia had 9-1, 9-0, 9-0. He Kexin was up by 1/10, so He Kexin wins the tiebreak. Nastia Liukin is silver, leading to one of our best gymnastics memes of Nastia looking to the side and being like, but why would I be second? Which I think is what she should caption every single one of her Instagram pictures. Just like in a swimsuit, like, but why would I be second? Why would you be second, Nastia? And then Yang Yilin, which is a very important part of this final to talk about, and
always gets left out.
Also, the same D score was 0.75 of a 10th lower on execution and got bronze. So for this final, we brought in the CSI forensics team to the scene of this robbery, so we could really have an investigation, a full investigation, and watched all of these routines. So, Jessica, after rewatching these 3, I want to know your thoughts on the validity of this result, whether a robbery has even taken place, or whether it was just a dramatic ruse.
So, for me, D scores being equal.
Right.
This is the thing. And you have to think about the code at the time, because it wasn't like, what, 3 points off if your handstand isn't vertical, which it is now.
Well, we'll get
it was
to
a
that.
lot. Right. We'll talk about, so before I say my final conclusion, talk about the 2008 code.
Okay, so the thing I had forgotten about, / maybe never knew until this moment, when going back and looking at the 2008 Code of Points, is there was no 0.3 deduction for the late pirouette. It was either 0.1 for being short 30 degrees or 0.5. Like, it jumped right to 0.5. Right. Like, if you were 29 degrees short of vertical, it was 0.1. If you were 31 degrees short, it was 0.5, which had a huge influence in kind of how I was watching this final, and I think changed a lot of my impressions.
For me, knowing that, it's Hikishin because of two things. Nastia's pack, which she almost caught on her belly button. She had to really push it out and get over the bar to keep control of that. And her dismount. That's not the dismount of an Olympic champion on bars.
But what I'm saying,
it's so much better, and I'm so proud of her for getting that dismount so much better.
The best one she ever did.
It's her double front to half turn. Double front, half out. It is so much better. Is she still cowboyed? Yes. Are her legs still apart? Yes. Are her feet flexed the entire time? Yes to all of that. But she didn't die. She didn't eat the mat when she landed. Like a puff of chalk didn't go straight into all of her face orifices when she landed. It's so much better. And I want to acknowledge that was the best she's ever done that dismount. But Hikishin is so clean. So clean, and Nastia has big, massive, obvious errors.
On the dismount. Specifically.
On the dismount and on her pack.
Yes. Well, yeah, on the pack she's over, and it's very, very arched.
It's very, very arched, but that's a dynamics, that's a rhythm deduction, that's a angle deduction, there's many deductions on that. Then I
would say the biggest thing is the cast half after the pack.
Oh, that's true.
Which was not her. Usually she did it pretty well. She kind of gets caught up in handstand and has to sort of adjust. And she ends up completing that half turn very late. And I think that's actually the biggest thing for me, for Nastia, and why I did not have Nastia winning gold here. Even though she ended up much, when I was re-looking at this, she ended up much closer than my general impression, stoked by 10 years of listening to Jessica talk about Nastia's bars and her dismount. Because I've gone through many journeys. 2008, I was like, Team Nastia. I am Team Nastia. It is Nastia. Because a reaction against NBC being Sean Johnson, American Girl Next Door, and Nastia, evil Russian. When it served them. But then when only Nastia was in the final, they were like, Nastia is the greatest American. That reaction against that was a big part of my impressions of 2008 and being like, you tell him, Nastia, you get him. And then I spent the next a decade listening to Jessica being like, this dismount should get a full point off in execution deductions, and she should have gotten it too. And I think it's my real impression is somewhere in between, largely because of the pirouettes. Nastia's pirouette finishing position is
much
higher and stronger than both Hikishin and Yang Yilin. And
but Hikishin is much closer than Yang Yilin is. Yang Yilin is degrees? Who cares about it? I'm going to finish my pirouette with my toes facing the audience.
But this is why I think it's significant, this deduction of everything past 30 degrees is 0.5. Because, there's one pirouette that Yang Yilin has, her full and a half toward the end of her routine, which finishes at horizontal, but they gave her D credit. And if there are plenty that finished 35 degrees past, well, that's the same deduction as horizontal for being past. It's both 0.5. So I didn't have a difference there. And actually what ended up being the difference for me was all of the elbow bends for Hikishin in her routine. It's every cast and every swing. It's elbows, elbows, elbows. So all of which is to say, I believe there was a robbery in the 2008 all-around final, and I believe the victim of this robbery was Yang Yilin, was bronze medalist Yang Yilin.
I didn't see that coming. I thought you were going to say it was Nastya. That just totally didn't see that coming. Because I felt like Yang Yilin is not in the conversation because she should have been getting the 0.5 deductions for every single pirouette she did, even though her routine is gorgeous.
I have 2.5s for her. I have 2.5s for all three of them. So hers are later, but they're all late enough to be 0.5.
That's very interesting.
And her dismount is the best one.
I remember at the time thinking it was Hekushin. Like watching it live.
Well, you still think it's Hekushin.
But I also think it's Hekushin because I believe in ties. So I believe that Nastya and Hekushin should have tied. But I also think like it's also like I'm glad that like going back and rewatching these, it's like I wish I could give Nastya a bonus for her gorgeous ginger, her laid out ginger. It's
amplitude
ridiculous.
Is another big factor because there are a lot of amplitude deduction. Like Hekushin, that you need on her shoot to high, you have to take the maximum amplitude deductions because it's like under the bar.
They're
Whereas
still doing
Nastia's
the
shoot to high is clearly rises higher, and she has actual counter rotation and swing out of it.
What I feel like this ultimately came down to is Nastya had a more routine representative of mastery of bars because she had swinging, she had pirouettes, she had releases, she had in-bar releases with height and that didn't end in a dead hang. This was still the era of China being like, let me see what I can get away with and not get the deductions for. And they were like, well, even if you land in a dead hang when you're doing a hex to high bar, as long as you can keep out of it and bend your arms, it's going to be okay. Like they worked the code. I mean, Nastya clearly also, worked the code in a really genius way because, they tied. But I think it's what the requirements are and how they were judging it. And I feel like China did a better job of hijacking the code and riding it like a wave onto the podium.
And the history of the Nelly Kim Women's Technical Committee is realizing that China figured out the code the best, identifying what they did, and then making it a deduction, a bigger deduction in the next code and being like, how dare they?
The real crime here was Adidas, I think it was, whoever the sponsor was, putting Olympic champion Valery Liukin, coach of Nastya, in some kind of t-shirt from the extra large, big and tall school, making him wear that for the finals. This t-shirt, he looks like a toddler running around in his dad's shirt. This white t-shirt goes down
Valery look. I'm not blaming any sponsor. I'm blaming Valery. That is the same. Watch him coach Vanessa Atler in 2000. He has like Fred Mertz pants that are going up to his nipples with a giant white shirt tucked in.
Who is Fred Mertz?
From I Love Lucy, Jessica. Keep up.
Oh my God.
It's just the 50s. It's just been a reference since the 1950s. You do a YouTube search for the pants that ate Fred Mertz. You will find a video that will illuminate this topic for you.
Practically tripped over his t-shirt trying to spot Nastya. That's all I'm saying. The true crime right here. Not fitting gymnasts into gymnast-sized clothes.
I mean, the fashion of the male coaches of U.S. women's gymnastics over the year is an unparalleled travesty.
Yeah, that's true.
Throughout. It's always been terrible.
Yeah. Oh, we could do an entire episode
and because they're all so sexist, they're such sexists, no one's ever listened to any woman saying, actually, maybe you should wear something different, because no U.S. men's gymnastics coach has ever listened to a woman say anything.
Oh my God, it's almost like one fact checker this week, I was like, you have been gifted these shirts that are extra large, even though I told the gift giver you wear a medium. And he was like, that's not true, that's not true. And I was like, what size is the shirt you're wearing now? Which is a nice fitted, as shirt should be, fitted shirt. And he was like, look at this. And it was a medium. It was a medium because I know what looks good on him. I still can't get him to start his OnlyFans, but what are you going to do? Speaking of
fact checker, I agree with Jessica. Fact checker's pants are too loose.
Yes. See, everyone knows this. Okay.
Because they're like, because the thing is, they look really comfortable, and I look at them and I'm like, that's the life. That's the life right there. But other people cannot get away with such a thing. We'll be right back after this. And we're back.
Oh my God. Okay. Speaking of having to get fact checkers starting OnlyFans, we have a lot of competitions coming up that we need to travel to. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the world is in a little bit of a recession right now. And so the way that we are sustainable is through our Club Gym Nerd members. So to thank you guys for being Club Gym Nerd members, and when you're a member, you get, what are all the things you get, Spencer? You get a discount on live show tickets. You get a discount on merch. You get first dibs on live show tickets, which we have one coming up at Championships with 2 guests who you guys are going to be very excited about. It's going to be on Saturday, probably morning brunchish time. So early enough for a brunch cocktail, basically. I mean, late enough. Yeah. I know you'd be worried. West Coast time.
Is it early enough to drink? Okay, yeah.
For a mocktail for me. And you also get an extra podcast every week, a whole extra podcast. And when we're at competitions, you get hours of extra podcasts that aren't available to the general public in our behind the scenes coverage. So to thank you guys and to make sure that you guys have checked your memberships and they're up to date, we are going to give away a commission, a whole episode like we were talking about earlier. We haven't been doing those because we've been trying to think about a way to make them like affordable, sustainable. And so we're going to give one away to a Club Gym Nerd member. So all you have to do is make sure that your Club Gym Nerd membership is active. So you can go to gymcastic.com, log into the club, make sure you're active. And when you're active, you can also join us live on Fridays for behind the scenes and ask questions live. And also you can listen to those extra podcasts in your favorite podcast player. You don't have to do anything. You just add it to your favorite podcast player. You don't have to log in or anything. So we're going to give away one at the end of June. So we are going to ask you guys to go now, gymcastic.com, make sure you're active, make sure you're in good standing, because you could win a whole entire episode on anything you want. Good standing.
Like good standing. Like you've gotten a membership demerit. Jessica put a little X by that member's name. You have 10 demerits. You're not in good standing.
Oh my God. And we want to just thank you guys for supporting us. We have our coverage of classic championships and world championships in Antwerp, where all the diamonds are stolen. The largest diamond heist in history happened in Antwerp, you guys. So be sure
I thought you were going to say in the second half of this episode, because we have some more diamond heists to talk about in some certain event finals.
Also true. Okay. Before we get to Pickpockets and Pirates, which is my favorite part, we need to talk about, all right, the verdict. Not guilty of robbery section.
I have a little rant because I feel like there is a famous controversy that is spoken of as though there was some kind of robbery here. And as far as I'm concerned, there is not a whiff of robbery anywhere in the vicinity of the 2012 Olympic all-around final. I think this is a fake controversy. I think the standings of the top 3 medalists are obviously correct and obviously right, and there should be no controversy whatsoever. Victoria Komova, as we talked about, amazing performance in the 2011 World All-Around Final. If she has an argument for a gold medal, it's in the 2011 World All-Around Final. It's not in the 2012 Olympics, where she took 915 steps off the mat on her vault landing and was still walking on the podium off the mat and doing additional steps before she saluted. Not in the vicinity of Douglas, who almost had a very similar error, but she does that lean toward the edge where she kind of saves it. So she incurs a little bit of deduction, but she saves it and avoids the massive deduction that Komova got. And it's Gabby Douglas. She won on the day. I know no one was expecting her to win, and it's very difficult to adjust your priors when you're like Jordan Weber, Victoria Komova, but one must when presented with evidence, and the evidence is Gabby Douglas gold medal, Victoria Komova silver medal. Alia Mustafina bronze medal, because the only controversy is between Mustafina and Raceman tying in third place is that the tiebreak rule is stupid that was applied there. That you drop the worst routine, and then then the person who had the worst routine basically wins. That's a terrible way to decide the tiebreak. But if they had done the tiebreak a more reasonable way, like who had the better E-scores, that would have been Ali Mustafina. And they never should have tied in the first place, because Raceman should have had a far lower E-score on beam than Mustafina, even though Mustafina fell, because Raceman also grabbed the beam and had additional wobbles, and execution-wise should have been well behind Mustafina on basic skill execution every single time, which is why we got the reputation for hating Ali Raceman on this podcast in the early days, even though nothing could be farther from the truth, because she's the queen of all things and she's an amazing person. But the deductions are there in the routines.
Right. This is our annual reminder that we're not talking about the gymnast. We are talking about the judging of the gymnast. We're talking about the judges and how the code is applied. That is what we were doing. Yeah, that for me is the biggest robbery. Mustafina.
Well, she got bronze.
Yeah, but she should have been higher.
You think she should have been higher than Komova?
Higher than Ali.
She was higher. Well, I mean, they tied, but she got the bronze medal.
Right.
Oh, it's not a robbery if it's just margins. That's not even you're going to get released just immediately on that. If they even try to arrest you for that robbery.
I'm in jail. I'm in jail for that, because they're going to be like, well, it was only 2. It's basically the same. No.
That's a pullover, no ticket. That's just, I noticed that your left tail light is out. So I'm not going to give you a ticket, but you do need to get that fixed. That's what margins are. It
should have been a greater score for bronze, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Is what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah.
It should have been a bronze that shone brighter. Much brighter than fourth place.
We should have polished that bronze.
Yes. Okay. It's time for some deep cuts.
Oh, so our favorite kind of cuts.
Prepare yourself to revisit some history, and I have some feelings about Spencer's deep cuts here. We do not agree on some of these robberies. I'm like, ugh, please. But we'll start with one that I totally agree with, which is Mo Huilan of China 1996 Olympic vault final, which is clearly a robbery.
I feel like of my deep cuts, this is the most controversial one. But I think it is too. That Mo Huilan...
No, it's not the most controversial. But if people that even know... The people don't even know about who we're going to talk about for the most controversial one. So that's why this is the most controversial of you've heard of these people.
Yeah.
Mo Huilan, DTY, gorgeous.
Yurchenko double full, first vault in the 1996 Olympic final. It was not as good as her, was it team or all around, when she stuck like one of the greatest Yurchenko double fulls in the history of time. So she did not stick in the event final, step back, but it is excellent. Great amplitude. Sufficient distance,
tiny pike in the hips. It's also so high. I think that's one thing you don't get a perspective on all the time in the angles from this vault, but it was so freaking high. The bummer is that on her second vault, so this is back in the days when you did 2 vaults, she's a little bit short on her handspring front pike half, and she steps forward a little bit. Her chest is down. That's definitely a deduction, but the amplitude and the form are spectacular on these. I mean, they're so good. So then Amanar.
Yes. Simona Amanar also does an excellent job.
Only a DTY, vaulting. Not an Amanar, but
right. Same first vault as Mo Huilan. Yurchenko double full. It's good. It's more distance than Mo Huilan. It's
way
a
more
lot
distance.
farther. And I think that's why she got a superior score. There is a bounce back. I don't think it's quite as virtuosic, is what I would say. You can see that foot separation at the end. I don't think the form is quite as strong.
Yeah, especially on the table, too. It is a super dynamic vault. Like, her power is incredibly impressive. You can see why an Amanar was not, something that killed her to do. Leg form, not as good as Mohilan, a little tiny bit crossed. Mohilan was barely crossed, I would say. Yeah, but I feel like the bigger problem comes on her second vault.
Agreed.
So
it's a Sukle half. It is knees. It is knees. We have knees. We have a large lunge. It should not have held up compared to Mohilan, is my feeling.
Yeah. And I think she was trying to do, I think it's supposed to be a Lopez? I think it's supposed to be laid out, but it clearly is not at all laid out. Or a Phelps or whatever it is. I don't think it's supposed to be a souk. Yeah, I don't think it's supposed to be a pike, but it's clearly a pike.
Right. She definitely pikes. She starts fairly laid out, but there's some definite piking going on in there. And
I wouldn't have given
Mohilan robbed. I feel like that's one of my more confident. Mohilan 996 vault gold robbed. I
feel like Amanar won on power, but not on precision and height. Distance, which at the time weren't as measured as they are now. Like, they're part of an overall in the code, I feel like, and now they're more kind of in the code. Okay, so Mohilan, 1996, vault
Robbery.
Olympic champion. Done. She was robbed. Okay, now deep cut of one of my favorite routines. Oh my God, ever in the whole entire world. Let's talk about 1997 World Beam Final and the correct winner.
It is perhaps the most traumatic of all gymnastics event finals in history that Kui Yuan Yuan did not win the gold medal for this routine.
I could talk about this routine all day long. Let me just tell you, Gina Gojin's
head back to our greatest beam routines of all time episode, because we did talk about this routine for quite a while, because it's perfect.
All you have to know is Gina Gojin's Gymnastics won this event, and so that's all I have to tell you. But then that's why someone was robbed. But she does. So Kui does back handspring, the highest laid out full on beam that's ever been done. She literally sets, smokes a cigarette, takes her SATs. She smokes many cigarettes. So takes her SATs, goes to college, graduates, and then does her full twist. Also does 3 Sassones in a row and then 3 back handspring in a row, all rebounding out of it. She does a beautiful scale. She does a double stag ring in this. Like, everything she does is perfect. She has one little bounce to the side. She also does an actual rebound into a full twisting swing down from a wolf jump. She does a half chest roll. So it's basically a half turn on her chest. It's not a chest roll. It's a be so flexible you can roll and have not enough boobs that you can roll around on your chest on beam. Or just you can tolerate a lot of boob smash pain, which I cannot, so I commend her. And yeah, a little boop forward on her dismount. It's spectacular.
And meanwhile, Gina Gojin was fine. It's a good routine. It's one of her most solid beams. It's fine.
But it doesn't make you want to run outside and scream at the joy and beauty in the world.
Kui's beam is one of the top 5 beams that's ever been done, and it somehow placed 3rd in this final. It's like the judges went to a 3 Michelin star restaurant, and then they went to Burger King, and they voted for Burger King. That's what the 1997 World Beam Final is.
I wonder if this is one of the routines that they use for this is what's wrong with the code. This is the routine that won, where Kui exists and is a living person. Some people just like to give us no strings attached money. They don't want to bother with joining Club Gym Nerd, and so they just donate. You can find our donate button for a no strings attached donation at the bottom of the club page at gymcastic.com/club. Now, the deepest of deep cuts.
the deepest of deep cuts that I really want to talk about for some reason, but I do want to talk about it, is that Czechoslovakia's Radka Zamanova deserved to win the 1980 Olympic beam title and did not because of politics. This is what I would like to say. I will also say, I think this routine is the strongest argument forever for two per country, because she deserved to be in this final over all of the politically overscored Soviets and Romanians, and she would not have been in this final without per country, because she was way behind all of them in qualification, even though her routine was superior and deserved not only to be in the final, but to win the gold medal.
This routine, I think, is... So this is 1980 when Nadia won beam at the Moscow Olympics. And who was second? Davidova?
Davidova, yeah.
Davidova.
Was that what you were trying to say?
Yes, that was what I was trying to say. Who's a brevet judge now, right?
She's one of the topsies.
Yeah. The thing about this routine is it has everything: handstand, turning, a mount, a press, a turns, plange out of a freaking Shushanova on the side. It's not a Shushanova, it's a Corbett sideways. I think it's a little too old school, and that's why I think she didn't win, because like she has one of those leaps that's not a leap. I also think probably she wasn't Russian or Romanian. Double full dismount out of a cartwheel. It's very complete when we're talking about like Nastia and like the mastery of the event. Like, can you do all the things? Leaps, handstands, planches, pirouettes, turns, scales, twisting, flipping. It has all of it. Like when she just casts up to a straddle planche, casts like bars, but she's on the beam out of her sideways Corbett into front support. She casts into a planche. She's like, boop, hello. Welcome to my planche. It's so badass. That's so hard.
Gold medalist Nadia Comaneci in this final. Like, Nadia's an amazing gymnast. This routine, Jessica. She got the same score. They both got a 9.85 for these routines in this final. Nadia almost fell.
She literally almost fell. Like, she does like a, back wobble or something, and like a half turn out of it. And she literally has to she wobbles, has to step back on the beam and correct her steps to stand up correctly. Like, I was like, what? Like, there's a major, massive mistake in it. Whereas Semenova is like smooth. She got a lot of form in her dismount, but like, who didn't?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, does not separate the athletes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think she was robbed. We know it was super corrupt, but Davidova, I think, was probably the winner, but she should have been scored much higher than she was, and it's a really, really cool routine.
I'll allow that. I'll allow that as an opinion.
But should Nadia have won? No. Fall off the beam and still win? Oh my God.
In terms of the your impressions from way back in the day that totally get changed by watching more and learning more, it's my impression was 1980 Olympics, Nadia deserved the world, and it was in Moscow, and it was so corrupt, and she got so underscored, and I feel like it was written about kind of like that. And you watch these routines, and it's oh no, Nadia got really overscored in these 1980 Olympics, time and again. Yes,
I mean, I just couldn't believe that wobble. I was like, she legit almost falls. I don't know how often you ever see that from her on beam. And I was like, what? She won with this? These are the days of butterbeam. No one wobbled. That never happened. The people at the top. I was shocked. Okay. Important situation we have to talk about before we talk about who was robbed of bronze. We did already talk about the shiniest bronze. But this is just bronze, period. Not a more shiny bronze.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about Pickpockets and Pirates for a moment. Interlude. So this is your tie breaks, your decimal points, and other things that were not in the judges' hands, essentially. So it was you're on vacation, someone drives by on a scooter and you're not wearing your bag crossways, and so they just take it off your shoulder and run. That's why you should always wear a cross bag. But then they say don't do that because then they'll cut it off with a knife and cut you, but I'll take my chances. Anyway, decimal pickpocketing. Nastia Memel, 2005. Yeah.
Yes.
They actually tied, right?
Yep.
But because of decimals, Memel won.
By 0.001, allegedly.
Math matters. You guys, this is why STEM is so important. So everybody that did a skill that was named after Nellie Kim before Nellie Kim did it, that would
like
be
her entire team.
Everybody that did a double
tucks with her. Entire lineup's doing a double tuck. Nellie Kim goes at the end and then comes back 30 years later and is like, who invented the double tuck and did it first? It's me.
Double pike or layout, the like stretch pike layout where you could do a layout and then pike the second one or however. Like that used to be a skill that you could do. Whoever did that before her whole team. The souk full laid out and tucked. All the people that did those before Nellie Kim.
I feel like on the souk vault, she has more of an argument. Like, I really do feel like she was a trailblazer in some of those souk vaults.
The one that I felt like she was a trailblazer was also not the handspring 1.5, because I'm like, wasn't that basically like a compulsory vault, kind of? I mean, it wasn't a compulsory vault, but I'm like, you just like twisted the compulsory vault a little more. But I feel like she does that round off, miss your feet, back tuck off beam. Like,
oh yeah, that's wild.
Name it after you.
Weird ass skill that's still in the code.
Yes,
like they got rid of all those other weird ass skills that were like multiple shapes and intentionally miss your foot, but that one magically stayed in the code.
Yes, I was like, that's like legit circus crazy nonsense. Also, just talk about Simone's double in daring and danger versus that round off, miss your feet, do a back tuck off beam. Take that out of the code. Leave a double beam dismount in. Take that Nellie Kim skill out. That's way more dangerous and scary as hell to me. Even when Nellie Kim did it, I was terrified. So anyway, but
that is someone who was like doing their brevet judges like review stuff did text me at one point like, tell me if anyone has ever actually done this skill besides Nellie Kim. And why is this in the code? I was like, there's no way anyone ever, other than Nellie, ever did this skill.
No, I feel like there have been people subsequently who did it, but before her, there has someone...
Wait, there have been people subsequently?
There is
I couldn't come up with anyone.
I feel like there was like a Parquet in like a level 9 meet that did it. Okay. Yeah, it was, I don't think an elite, but it's been done. But I mean, should it be done? Did they live? Barely. Also, she has the gainer full on beam, a tucked gainer full off beam, named after her. So probably her entire team did that too. Generations of Soviet gymnasts did that. So all of those people, we salute you. You were robbed.
Yeah.
Okay, Raducanu, obviously we talked about versus the doctor, right? Raducanu was robbed by that box of ephedrine she took or whatever it was. Horkina versus the apparatus norms. Obviously, she was pickpocketed. I mean, it was a little more, it was maybe a mugging, I think, with the apparatus norms in that vault, and all the gymnasts who had to vault in that vault at the wrong height. Yeah, Rosa Galieva being Galievad in, being sick or injured or whatever, taking out her.
It was not sick, Jessica.
It was injured.
It was a knee injury. An injury she did not have. We should do a whole episode where I just reenact that Rosa Galieva fluff from the 96 Olympics.
Never talk like that dude again, please. Never, ever talk like anyone at NBC. It immediately...
The sacrificial lamb was little Rosa Galieva.
Okay, well, as long as you do an accent on it, I'm okay with it. But no 50-year-old white dude doing sports talk. I can't. Like when I hear that, I
That
really
one is
don't want to
not
watch.
even sports talk. That's just a
It's the
wild
voice.
John Tesh nonsense from.
And John Tesh wasn't even that bad either. He wasn't as bad as the He Who Should Not Be Named, who hated gymnastics the most. But it's that sportscaster voice immediately makes me not want to pay attention. Like whatever you're saying, which is a terrible. I feel bigoted saying that, but it is because I have a. It's not. They could be saying something right. I shouldn't. But for so long that voice was wrong. So, also Milosevic being replaced with Marinescu in 1996. That's another being Galieva incident. So that's another drive-by mugging. Also, all the 1980 Olympic teams who didn't get to compete because of the boycott. So there was, according to the U.S. State Department, 65 nations refused to participate in those games. But there were still 80 who did participate. And you know what I didn't know? Some of them were like Europe were like, oh, our protest is we're not going to march in the opening ceremonies, or we're, going to send athletes, but not under our flag, or like some like halfway, well, we still want to win stuff. But like gymnastics countries like Canada, China, Japan, South Korea, West Germany, back when Germany was 2 countries, they didn't participate. So.
Okay, my question about this, though, is can we call it do you think the U.S. women would have won a medal in 1980
they were
had they been...
Listen.
But but is that the topic?
It's Pickpockets and Pirates subcategory of robbery. So they were robbed of the opportunity. They weren't robbed of a medal. We didn't say this was you were robbed of a medal.
I literally said that at the very beginning of this episode.
I know, but I didn't say it in the intro. So both of our interpretations count. So I feel like robbed of an opportunity is a robbery. Even if you weren't
the correct answer to my question was yes, both Kathy Johnson and Marcia Frederick could have won medals at the 1980 Olympics. I mean, I think they probably would have been politicked out of it, but they had the gymnastics capability. That was the answer I was looking for there.
Yeah. When did China come back? Were they competing in 1980? I feel like they boycotted, but they might not have even. There was like a whole period of time where they didn't like.
Yeah. I mean, 84 is when like China was like, gymnastics. But I don't know what I would have to look as to whether they were like in the picture of maybe competing in 80.
She was robbed of the bronze. Next section.
Okay. She was robbed of the bronze. Anna Pavlova, 2004 Olympic all-around. Thoughts?
Yes.
Okay. Because
all you have to do is say her name, Anna Pavlova. I feel like we did a whole commission on this too. But yes, Anna Pavlova, should she have won an Olympic medal? Yes. I don't even care what else happened. It doesn't matter to me. Yes, she was robbed and should have won.
Her beam was so superior in this all-around final. It's creative. It's dynamic. She has some great saves also in this particular routine where I'm like, yeah, you can't really take for that. Even though, like, she's a little under on her triple full beam dismount, but she she sells it as much as you can. And on that, like, back, what does she do? That back dive half to split, which is kind of her iconic beam element. She pulls that back, so there are little things, but she saves it. And then you have Zhang Nan winning bronze with like a large wobble on a sheep jump on beam. And, Pavlova should have had a margin because of beam, so that even though she had 0.3 less in start value on Zhang on bars, she still could have made it up. Because also I think her bars execution was superior.
Anna Pavlova, like the minute that when I think of her, what comes to mind instantly is that beam skill. That back dive, quarter, perfect split, gorgeous, like just gorgeous, gorgeous gymnastics. So yeah, obviously. What year was this? 2004? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yes. Should have gotten bronze. Robbery.
You're in.
Also, fact checker coming through for us. Chinese women's gymnastics, 1928 through 1980, they did not participate. So they boycotted, which is important to boycott.
Do we know if they were doing like worlds before the 84, like before around the 80 Olympics?
Yeah, fact checker. Were they doing worlds? The women? Let's just add on. I mean, you gotta live up to your.
So yeah, Ma Young Hong won world gold in 79.
Okay,
at the Fort Worth. So it was like country it was going to be country dependent, but they were like on the gymnastics scene.
Oh, don't say the scene. This isn't a punk show. The scene. We're not at a skateboarding park.
What a weird thing to be upset about.
I hate it. It's like when people say fandom and scene. I can't stand. I could barely stand when people talked about the scene in punk rock. When it's gymnastics, it's even more like she burst onto the scene. Ugh. Think of Spencer, please. The competition circuit, the international meets, the scene. The scene sounds like she was drinking on a corner and did a cartwheel. That I don't care for this.
I definitely have very different associations to this word than you do.
Yes, I really don't like the scene. Maybe because it's And the women's team took bronze at the 81 Worlds. So they were like, bump-a-da-dum, here we come, 84 Olympics. Yeah, and the 81 Worlds were in Moscow.
Everyone's quibbles were resolved. They fixed it by 81.
They were like, oh, it's not the Olympics, we'll be there. Stay in Afghanistan for another 10 years, just like we did. Look at that. So she was robbed of the bronze. Anna Pavlova, established, done, universally agreed upon. Every human being on Earth agrees on this. Okay. Also, something I think that we can all agree on, even though we love Chung Fei forever, Chung Fei.
Mm-hmm. Alicia Sacramone, 2008, vault bronze, robbed because she hit. And Chung Fei did not hit.
Chung Fei literally fell. She freaking fell on her chung. And not like a brush. Like she landed on her knee. On her knee. No feet were touched.
Mary Lou floor.
It wasn't a Mary Lou.
Not a 9-9
Campbell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, she was deducted. She got the 8/10 for a fall that it was then. And she did, the argument in her favor is that she had 9/10 of a difficulty edge on Alicia Sacramone, and a fall was 8/10. And Sacramone was not at her best in that vault final. Those were not, by that point, it was like hanging on by a thread. Those were not her best vaults, either of them. She had a little short, but in this case, I think it's a classic example of deducting only for the fall in Chung Fei's case and not for what caused the fall.
Yep. I agree with you. Which we see a lot in NCAA gymnastics. Which is basically NCAA gymnastics is 1996 to 90s era.
Earlier, because 96 we weren't doing 10s anymore.
That's true. But you do have, we were doing 10s. Oh, you couldn't achieve a 10.
We have the 10 system, but it was not possible.
Yeah, you couldn't get one.
Like, it was still possible to score a 10 in 92.
But you have to
88, you were just like I used to say, I think NCAA gymnastics is like 92, and now I'm like, NCAA gymnastics is getting like 88, where it's just like 10 for anything.
This brings me back to the eras of when you didn't actually have to hit a 180 split, and we just need to require a 180 split, even though I know everyone's afraid that it will be like rhythmic and everyone will have torn labrums in their hips from the time they're a toddler because oversplits.
We're doing such a good job at avoiding injuries now.
Oh my God, did you see the study that came out today that NCAA gymnasts have the highest rate of preseason concussions? I was like,
of course they do.
Of like college sports or something. I was like, oh,
is it more than football? Did it beat football, or is this just women's sports?
I think it is.
That would be something if it beat football.
I mean, but I think football, they're like always looking for it, and I feel like they're not.
Or they're not. No one's reporting it.
Oh, yeah. See, that's the thing. Or they're just like, let's see. Women's college gymnastics leads NCAA sports with most preseason concussions. Well, I mean, in football, they have like 1,000 trainers, which gymnastics will have like one. Normally, maybe some assistants to help. And, also gymnasts fall over 100% of the workout is falling.
Yeah.
So it has to be really remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
And, they don't have helmets and they don't have 1,000 trainers. And let's see, it also said, so this is a study by, I can't see her name. It's a woman out of University of Michigan. Laura Bailey, University of Michigan. This is in Sports Medicine and Kinesiology Journal. And it says that women's gymnastics has the highest percentage of preseason concussions of all NCAA sports, with women gymnasts experiencing concussions at a rate of 50% higher than football players.
There you go.
So we will discuss this further maybe on Behind the Scenes this week. But yeah, you guys. Oh, okay. Do you have any final thoughts on, robbed of bronze?
On robbed of bronze?
Yeah. We have one obvious one.
What?
That's not controversial. The 88 Olympic, the U.S. Olympic team, who got robbed of bronze because...
That's your, like, pickpocket section. That's after the fact.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with the team. But I just want it to be mentioned. I feel like that's a fair...
Yeah. It's a robbery. It's definitely, it's a robbery.
But I mean, that was totally the judge's hands.
If it's a rule. Yeah, it was in the judge's
hands. Right, so it's not in the pickpocket.
Is it a robbery if it's an accurately applied rule?
It's just being
dickish.
Being shitty. Right.
Yeah.
It's like taking not telling someone before the meet starts that, hey, you're not wearing your flag or your emblem, or you're all not wearing the same uniform. So you're going to, like, that kind of stuff. I'm like, you've got to give somebody a minute to give them a warning before you take a deduction. Where I'm like, could you not see, was the spirit of the rule violated by someone staying on the podium so they didn't get in your way? I feel like it's pretty booty. Unless you took it for all the teams that did that, and there were multiple teams that did it, but it's still booty. Yeah, I mean, if they're not deducting for blue eyeshadow, then you can't deduct for someone staying on the... Not eyeliner! Don't at me! Okay. That's the thing you want to not...
I can't believe they didn't add a sentence into the code about, one must not dress in a blue eyeshadow manner.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? I mean, they might as well add that now that they have the no cat makeup, theatrical makeup rule. You'd think that they would add that too. Okay, so you guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting the show, especially our Club Gym Nerd members. We'll see you guys on Friday on Behind the Scenes at noon Pacific. You can log in live and ask us questions, or you can listen to your favorite podcast player. Send in questions to us at gymcastic@gmail.com, or you can put them on the forum. Shout out to all of the people that heard our discussion on Behind the Scenes about how no one has bid on the 2027 Worlds and went to their local tourist commission of their city and was like, hey, us, bring it here. So everyone should do that. If you live in a nice walkable city, this is what we look for.
Now Jessica is going to have a big list of requirements.
Just for walkable city. And not...
No one in the city has ever smoked a cigarette. You have to confirm
especially
that.
Indoors. Yeah. And just a nice walkable place, or you have public transportation. If I don't need a car, this is my dream. Also, their city commission, whatever tourist board, replied to our listener immediately and said, we didn't know this was an opportunity. We're going to look into it. So, you guys, bring it somewhere close. Wherever you are, it doesn't matter if you don't have to be in the U.S. Ireland, I'd like you to host it. If you guys could do that, that would be great. Wherever you are. Also, like, anywhere in South America, Central America, someplace that's not Europe is also a good for the world to go to, because I feel like everything is in Europe. I mean, these World Cups, you can practically walk from one to the other. They're so close together because they're all freaking Europe. Anywho, you guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and like and all the things that you do. And we will see you on Friday for Behind the Scenes. Until then, remember to take off and gay. Happy Pride, split on rights, and we'll see you on Friday on Behind the Scenes. Thanks for listening. Do you want to know what goes on our extra podcast every week, or what some people call GymCastic OnlyFans? Here's a little teaser for you. Home Slice, who's in charge of European Gymnastics, Why am I blanking on his name? Oh, shockingly, I'm blanking on his name. He said they didn't have...
When you say home slice, you have so many home slices that I don't know who home slice is from moment to moment.
Home slice is a fill-in for when I can't remember someone's name, but the president of European Gymnastics said...
Farid Gaibov, not Garibov. Yeah.
Thank you, Lady Beaverhausen. I knew you guys would know.
The one who ran against Watanabe
and didn't win.
FIG president at that time, and Watanabe was like, yeah, that's cute. I'm going to write a poem for my entry into the documents, and you're going to write like a whole thing about broadcasting rights, and Watanabe's like, I'm going to write a poem that I'm still going to win. Okay, see you later. That's not how this works.
That's literally what happened.
That's not an exaggeration. That is what happened.
It's totally not an exaggeration.
Gaibov was like, we will get this, like, maybe broadcast a challenge cup or something. And Watanabe was like, there is no power without the rain.
If you like what you heard, get more by joining Club Gym Nerd at GymCastic.com. This show is created, executive produced, edited, audio engineered, and published by me, Jessica O'Byrne.
Managing editor in charge of show notes, podcast content, and wrangling over enthusiasm is Spencer Barnes.
Our news editor is Uncle Tim of Gymnastics-history.com.
And customer service, IT, Gymternet news, and additional production services are provided by Steve Cooper, aka Fact Check.